Are you planning on aging with independence? Curious how technology might make that more possible as we get older? Well, tune in because that's exactly what we're discussing. And before we get into it, please share this with your tech savvy and maybe not so tech savvy caregiver friends because you know they're going to want this information just as much as you do. Welcome to Fading Memories, the podcast for caregivers of loved ones with dementia. I'm your host, Jennifer Fink. My mom had Alzheimer's for 20 years, and when I went looking for answers, I had to start a podcast to find them. Join me as we navigate the challenges of dementia caregiving together. This podcast is your beacon of support and empowerment. Let's share our experiences, find solace, and discover the strength within us. Get ready to embark on a transformative caregiving journey with Fading Memories. If you're looking for additional advice, be sure to sign up for our weekly email newsletter. It's brief, gives you great advice. You can read it in less than 5 minutes, and you know where to find the link. It's in the website, on the show notes. We're working on subscriber-only information and specials, so you're not going to want to miss out. When I learned that despite eating as healthy as possible, we can still have undernourished brains, I was frustrated. Learning about neuroreserves, Relevate, and how it's formulated to fix this problem convinced me to give them a try. Now I know many of you are skeptical, as was I. However, I know it's working because of one simple change. My sweet tooth is gone. I didn't expect that, and it's not something other users have commented on, but here's some truth. My brain always wanted something sweet. Now, fruit usually did the trick, but not always. One bad night's sleep would fire up my sugar cravings so much they were almost impossible to ignore. You ever have your brain screaming for a donut? Well, for me, those days are gone. I believe in my results so much that I'm passing on my 15% discount to you. Try it for 2 or 3 months and see if you have a miraculous sweet tooth cure, or maybe just better focus and clarity. It's definitely worth a try. Now, on with our show. Hey, welcome back, listeners. I've got a previous guest for you here. With me today is Ryan Hurd. His episode came out on the 4th of July, 2023, and today we're discussing all things technology that can help our loved ones age in place well, safely, and happily. So thanks for joining me again, Ryan.
Hey, Jennifer. Thanks for having me on again. This is great. I love talking with you. It's always fun and entertaining.
Well, that's good because nobody wants to listen to a downer, boring podcast.
Well, we're going to make sure that this one is not downer and it's definitely not boring, but we've got a lot of information for you, right?
Yep. So as you guys who have listened to the previous episode know, and when I say previous, I'm talking about the one that came out in July, Ryan is part of the caregiver. What is you're the losing my train of thought.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, I'll let you tell it because caregiver smart solutions. There we go. I'm not wearing my glasses, so I can't read your background. And that's what the July 4th episode was about. But today is about all the technologies. So let's hear about you in case this is the first episode for some.
Well, I'll tell you what. I've spent the last 30 years of my life in smart home, IoT, all that fancy stuff. And I got to tell you, I've had a lot of fun. It's amazing what technology can do. But when we talk about our loved ones, in my case, it was my father, and I needed to know how he was doing. Not only did I need to know how he was doing, I needed to know right at this moment, like, was he okay? Because I don't know about you, but a lot of times when I call Dad, he doesn't answer. So what do you do? And that's where I came up with Caregiver Smart Solutions, which is a technology using tiny non-invasive sensors that are, think of it as a caregiver support system. They are monitoring that person's activities of daily living. And this way, is everything okay or is something out of the ordinary?
And you get real-time data, and you don't necessarily have to rely on cameras, which when your episode came out, I did put out a video asking people how many caregivers have used cameras in their homes of their loved ones, and a lot of people did have, which is totally fine. And some people couldn't because their loved one was in a care home, like my
Right.
mom.
Right.
And so I got some of the pros and the cons, which and somebody's in the mid stages and can still handle a lot of their own daily things. You don't need a camera. So I love
Right.
what you've created, because I think that's every you got stages. It's like, we have baby locks on everything until you can teach them
Right.
to stay out of the cabinets. Or I have a really quick
Well,
funny story on home devices. I was photographing a wedding, backyard wedding, and when you're the photographer, you can't just run to the restroom when it's convenient. You have to go when the time is appropriate. And I got
right.
into the bathroom, and it had one of those toilet latches on it, and I swear to God, I almost wet myself. 'Cause I have a daughter, and I never had one of those things, so it was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to pee in the sink. Thankfully, I figured out how to get it open before it was too late. But yeah, sometimes
Yeah.
we have to. Technology has to grow with our needs or shrink
Yeah,
with our
and ladies
needs.
and gentlemen, you've heard it first on Fading Memories right here today. Well, you're right. I mean, there is appropriate and there's not appropriate technology. And when we're talking about, worried about somebody, the first thing we do is we go to the camera. And, it sort of makes sense, especially when we talk about the baby camera. I believe I had a baby camera for each one of my kids. You're there, you're a new parent, you're concerned, you're hearing all these horrible things about SIDS and everything else in the world, and you just want to know if they're okay. The problem is I wasn't sure if I was getting more stress because I'm staring at this stupid camera all the time, or I'm just exhausted because then I fall asleep and then I wake up in a panic staring at the camera again. So, you know, sometimes it's a good idea, sometimes it's not. Either way, there's got to be something better. And that's really where my focus has been over the years is how do we use technology to help us as humans, right? So technology is a tool and the data is really information to help us, whether we're a caregiver or whether we just want a smart home or who knows, whether we have a young child at home or we just want to make sure that they got home after school and everything's good. How do we leverage that technology to work for us finally?
Makes sense. So,
Yeah.
besides the caregiver smart solutions, you were stacking up some favorite company
Yes.
stuff there. So, what other technology options are there for aging in place well, or monitoring a loved one, both?
Yeah. Well, there's so much. So let's start with use case. So, first, as a caregiver, the first thing you have to figure out is what's important. What do you want to know? Like, what is the most important thing? What is the problem that you're having? And with that, there is a lot of stuff out there. Now, this stuff, because it's technology, pretty much all of it works on the internet. So, your mom, your dad, your grandma, they have to have internet in the home. Right? So, that's number one. They have to have internet. Then number two, what's important and what is that person like? So for example, when we look at the age groups, each age group will use technology differently. So for example, myself, I am considered a millennial. So for me, having a smart door lock makes sense because there's 5 of us in the household, plus my parents, plus friends. We just went away on vacation, so we needed somebody to come over and feed the endless animals we have in this house that we couldn't take with us. So we give them the code, they're able to come in, they do their thing, everybody's good. We don't have to use a key. With that said, if we talk about my 96-year-old grandmother, she's part of that greatest generation. For the last, I don't know, 60, 70 plus years, she has come home and she's put a key into the door. That's what she wants to do. That's what she expects. She doesn't want any of the fancy technology. So that's the type of person that you want to, for her own independence and dignity, keep the regular door lock. It's fine. Or if you have to get a smart lock, get one that has a key, right? It's all about working within their terms. And then if you go to my youngest son, who is 11, It really is kind of fascinating because here is a child that has grown up in a world that has no buttons, right? His phone, his iPad, even his laptop, everything is touch and swipe, everything. And I think we spoke about this on the last podcast. You know, in my day, when I had to make a phone call, I had to go to the wall because the phone was bolted to a wall and it had a long wire on it. And if you wanted a longer wire because you wanted some privacy, you had to go down to a shop called Radio Shack and buy yourself a longer cord. And they would always get all tangled up. But you know, that's the good old days, as we say, right?
Yep. My household had two lines because my dad had a business line and then the home line. And we could use the business line occasionally, but not for random friends or boyfriend phone calls. But yeah, and he worked for the phone company. So when they had the house built in 1970, which was the year before my sister was born. There were phone jacks in every room. So pretty sure, I don't remember her having a phone, but I did. We're 4.5 years apart. So, she was starting high school when I was starting college. So I'm sure she must have had a phone in her room. I know I did for a while.
Right. And now kids nowadays have their own phones with their own lines and their own everything. You're right, because back then it was either the party line or after the party line, it was then, okay, the house had a line. And if you were lucky enough, if you could convince your mother, in my case, to get my own line, hey, life was good. I had my own phone number, call me on my phone number. You know, it was interesting. Back in that time, we're talking late 80s, I had a pager. Now, it was only drug dealers or, people from Jersey that had pagers. And of course, I grew up in Jersey, but I wasn't a drug dealer, so it's not that. But it's interesting because at that time, there's two things that happened. You always had a cup holder of quarters, and you always had like a good 15 minutes. So let's say my mother my mother paged me, and then I would have 15 minutes to find a payphone, and I would feed it the quarters. I would call my mother up, and she'd always ask me the same question: when are you going to be home? And I'd always give her the same answer: at some point. And it would always be, well, try to be around midnight. Okay. And for the most part, that's what it was. But it's interesting because you were looking for a phone, you were feeding it with quarters, and there was a certain time frame. Where nowadays somebody texts you and they're like, it's been a minute. Why haven't you text back? I'm talking to you. It's like, can I just go into the bathroom for some peace and quiet? So,
exactly.
Technology can be good and it can be bad, but it's all relative, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, you're talking about the home phone, quote unquote. I recently saw a YouTube short, where the parent, the parent has a smartphone, the teenager has a smartphone, but the young kids, probably early elementary school, they're too young for smartphones. So the household has a smartphone that's left at home, but it's a phone the kids can use. And I thought that's pretty smart, but it's also sort of going like almost backwards, but not quite. It's like a newfangled twist on what we grew up with.
Yeah. But, the other side of that is like the Life 360. So for us, we have Life 360 on all of our phones. And again, it's the question of, okay, so when should my kid have a smartphone, or even mom? Because I'll tell you what, just like Caregiver Smart Solutions, my company, is all about support. We are basically like that Life 360 for mom. You just want to know what's going on. And the same thing with our kids. If our kids are going to be away on bikes, and I want them out, I want them active, I want them enjoying the summer, but I also want to know, where are they and if they're coming home. So again, that's kind of like, how do you make that technology work for us? Now, with that said, since we're talking about like phones and stuff, let me show you this, which is kind of cool. So this is a product by Hands Free Health. It's called Well-Be. And basically, think of it as Alexa on steroids. Now, the interesting thing about this is you can have real conversations, and it can also stimulate your loved one. And what I mean by that is asking it interesting questions and having those conversations more than just what's the weather like? What time is it? Can you play my favorite song? because whether it's a game on an iPad or whether it's talking to a device, it's all about keeping our brains going, right? Our memory retention, challenging, all of these things are the things we need as human, as well as the physical side. So this was something that was really interesting that I spoke to the developer of it and the manufacturer, and I got to tell you, I'm really excited on this. This is kind of cool. It does a bunch of things. I'm going to read it to you right now when I get my
When you get your
glasses,
glasses.
because yeah, so you say hello to it. You can see it right here. It's reminders for medical appointments, recording blood pressure and weight. So if you have a doctor that's asking you to take your blood pressure every day, instead of writing it down, you can just tell. It's so much easier. Prescription medication reminders, caregiver notifications, general knowledge, obviously, news, stocks, updates, weather forecasts, music, pet care information. It's so if, again, when we say it's kind of like a Alexa just on steroids and really tweaked to help the caregiving community, this is something that's really cool. So again, I would check it out. That's something that I've had some fun with lately. Now,
It sounds interesting. And I have to laugh because I must be one of the few households. I don't have an Alexa. I don't have a Google Home, although we have so many Google devices that's probably going to change
all
someday
around the
soon.
home.
Yeah. Well, we have apps on the phone, like the air conditioner came on, which is fine. But when my husband's not home, I make sure it's at 78 because my
Yeah.
office is freezing. The window's open because it's downstairs, doesn't affect the temperature. But sometimes it'll come on and I'll be like, that feels cold. And so I'll look on my phone. I'm like, yep, now it's set at 74. Nope. Turn it up to 78.
Bring it back down.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
no, that's 74 is too cold.
Well, and you know what? Just like that, and opening up doors and windows, for the smart home, you have the ability to motorize shades and windows and all these cool things. When we adapt that to the home market for our loved ones, if somebody has, let's say they're in a wheelchair or they're using a walker, there's a great company out there called AutoSlide. And what AutoSlide does is they automate doors. So think of, if somebody is using a walker, it's hard enough for them to get around. But then on top of that, let's say they have a dog and they want to let that dog outside, and maybe it's a backslider or something. So AutoSlide automates that door. So this way, all they have to do is push a button, or even they have a little key fob. And when they get close, it's automatically going to open the door. And it can open it all the way. Let's say mom wants to get outside and touch some grass, or just do, let's say, the doggy function. So it opens up 12 inches and it lets Fido out. That's kind of cool because, again, as we're getting older, how do we use this technology to help us? And whether it's, let's say, the back slider, whether it's the bathroom door, whether it's the front door, especially if you're in a wheelchair, I mean, it's hard enough. And what everybody really yearns is, how can I be as independent as possible? And products like AutoSlide gives you that ability. So let's say, again, you're coming up to the front door, maybe you're using a ramp, and that door is automated. So now if you just have this key fob kind of thing, you just go up to it, boom, opens up the door, you go right through, life is good. It's so much easier. And that's what gets me excited about technology, how we can adapt kind of the new stuff with the old door and make it work for that person.
Yeah, I would like something like that because to get out to our deck, we've got doors that swing in, screens that swing out. So if you're trying to get out with the dog, the 75-pound golden retriever who has all eyes on your plate, or if you're trying to walk her and you foolishly put the leash on before you get out the maze of two doors,
Right.
and they're old screens. You'll probably appreciate this. They're almost like beach cabin screens. If you're not careful, they smack against the frame and they make that vacation-y sound, which is kind of cool, but not always. You don't always want the door smacking against the frame. And, it's a challenge. And we have lots of wildlife around here. And my crazy mutt decided one day she was going to chase a deer, which surprised me because on a leash, she's very wary of them. But off leash, she thought that was a totally smart thing to do. It's definitely not a smart thing to do. Fortunately, it ran away from her and didn't, smash her melon in.
Yeah,
But yeah,
right.
or you're coming home with groceries. Sheesh, I can think of a lot of reasons. I'm able-bodied and I can think of a lot of reasons why I would want to use the auto slide. That is cool. Okay, so what
Yeah,
else
it
you
is
got
kind of
for us?
cool. All right, so let's talk water. So in all households, right, the number
Yep.
one issue is water, dehydration, whatnot. But with that, it comes like the number one issue from insurance issues happens to be water damage, right? Maybe your hot water heater went, the second floor bathroom had a burst pipe, whatever it is. So there's product out there. There's one that's called Flow by Moen. And what it is it's this intelligent water meter. So it's using all this state-of-the-art technology, AI, blah, blah, blah stuff. And what happens is it goes on the main water line coming in your house. So you do need a plumber. You need a plumber to install this. But it learns the habits of the water in the house. It literally gets to the point where it knows the difference between, let's say, you're sprinkling the grass, or you have one of those toilets that's kind of running on the second floor that you can't hear, that's just dribbling all the time. It's that amazing. And if it senses something out of the ordinary, like let's say you're watering or let's say you're filling the pool. So it's going to ask you a large amount of water going on right now. And you can say, okay, well, I'm filling the pool, bypass it. If you're on vacation and you're not filling the pool, I want that thing to turn off. The great thing about it is it's going to turn off the main water coming to the house, which is going to minimize whatever that problem is. So if you have a burst pipe, it's going to minimize, so it's not going to be going on for 3 days straight. That's the kind of things, especially, again, when we're talking about our aging loved ones. Maybe mom is down the block. Maybe mom is 3 states away. You have no idea. And maybe mom's not paying attention because she has a basement. And hey, how many times do we actually go into the basement? So I think that's a great use of nowadays technology as well.
Yeah, I know somebody's got a 14-month-old house, and they came home to water on the floor. The cabinet facing on the island was buckling. It eventually came off, and
Oh,
the yeah, I mean we're talking a like
a lot of
brand new
damage.
house. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was their pot filler. I guess it was not installed properly or something. But basically, it had been leaking the entire time they'd been in the house. So you wouldn't know that, you couldn't see it until the water eventually got out. But yeah, it's like, I'm just thinking it's like, if we ever get our kitchen redone, not that they're connected, but we have a toilet that likes to run just often enough that
Well, you better go catch it.
yeah, for real. But I used the upstairs guest bath, came downstairs, did some work, went upstairs to get something to drink. 2.5 hours later, and the toilet was still running. It was like,
Ah,
And being in California, except for this year, it's like drought, drought, drought. No water, no water, no water. And so the toilet running for 2.5 hours just like it made me crazy.
yeah,
Just
that's a
just from
lot.
the environmental issues, and of course we had so much rain this year that it would still annoy me, but it's like not quite
Right.
as big a worry. But it's
I don't
like
want
now
that
we've
thing
talked
going
about
on
two
forever.
things everybody should have in their homes, probably.
Yeah. I do think something like that. I have it in my home. I think every home should have it because it just really gives you peace of mind. And if and when something happens, because we all know it will, at least it's going to minimize that issue.
Well,
Now,
now
since we're
you tell
talking
me about
about
this
water,
thing a week before we're leaving on a 3-week road trip, and I don't have time to get it installed.
there you go.
um,
Amazon, it's called Flow by Moen. You're good to go.
yeah, but then I need the plumber, which
Yeah,
still waiting on a plumber to work on the pipes in our master bathroom, primary bathroom. Excuse me, old term.
eventually we'll get there. Well, since we're talking about water and we're talking about bathrooms, let's talk about voice control of the bathroom. Now, I think we had this conversation before. So the first thing I'm going to ask you is, Jennifer, do you think there's any reason that you would want to talk to your toilet and tell it to flush?
Maybe.
Meh, yeah. I mean, on its face value, it's like, meh, maybe, maybe not. Well, in my household, where I have 3 young boys, and it's absolutely chaos. So that vision that just went through everybody's brain is exactly how it is in my house. So as I'm walking past the bathroom, I see this wonderful toilet of, well, you know what's in it. The ability to say, Alexa, flush the toilet, it's kind of a nicety, right? I don't have to go in there and whatnot. But when we talk about our aging loved ones, if we talk about my 97-year-old grandmother, she has a hard enough time getting out of the chair, her favorite chair. And when she does sit down, she's really more falling down into that chair. She's really not sitting down. Well, that same thing happens on the toilet. Now, if there was something that we could do to just make it a little bit easier for her, now we're talking about game changing, and that's where this comes in. So the ability to say, Alexa, flush my toilet, gives her the ability not to bend over again, not to try to juggle, not to try to fuss with that toilet, which is a potential fall. Now, let's take that one step further. We've talked about the toilet. They can also do it for your shower, for your tub. Think about it. The ability where grandma does not have to like put her hand into the shower, turn the shower knobs on, maybe it's too hot. Now she goes back in, she gets burnt, she's bending over, she might fall. If she could just say, Alexa, turn the shower on, make it 85 degrees, and it just happens. And later on, Alexa, turn the shower off. Again, it's the little things that can totally change and retain the independence and dignity of our aging loved ones. And I think that's fabulous.
That makes sense. Do you know if that works with a hot water heater that has a heat pump on it?
It should work with anything because a hot water heater, once it triggers, once it sees the call for hot water, regardless if it's a tank, a all-in-one combi boiler, everything is producing at the same rate. So yes, and it goes into the mixing valve. So a lot, again, this one is by Moen, but a lot of their mixing valves are smart. So they know exactly where 70, 80, even 90 degrees is.
Because we have so it recirculates the hot water, which is so lovely. Is literally you turn on the shower and it's like less than 10 seconds and it's hot.
That's
I like
so
hot
nice.
showers. I would have to figure out how hot it is. I like showers, but I'm pretty sure it's more than 85 degrees. And it would be almost nice to do that on the sinks because you turn on we've got the two handle taps right now.
Yep.
And you turn on the hot water. I turn on the water, rinse my hands, turn it off, wash, turn it back on, and before you're done rinsing, it's too hot if you've only turned on the hot side. So, okay. More things for the plumber to do if they ever get back here.
More things, but we're always looking for that technology that can help us. And I mean, these are the kind of things that can help us at all ages, but especially our aging loved ones. Now, since we're in the bathroom, let's talk about the toilet again. I tend to talk about the kitchen originally because the kitchen was like a total gift of technology, from the smart microwave to the smart stove to the smart refrigerator. And I always said it's the next generation is going to be that bathroom because the bathroom is the only place you can be 100% honest. When you get out of that shower, well, you're there in all God's glory. So the things that are coming out are going to be fabulous. Everything from floors that'll be able to take your weight. So on a daily basis, they're going to see your weight and they're going to record that for you. Or even mirrors that are going to take pictures of you each and every day. Now, I know it sounds scary. I don't want a picture of me like that, God forbid. But think of it like this. Let's say you have a little mole on your face. It could be a sunspot. It could be a mole. It could be nothing. But it's a lot of times as humans, we just don't pay attention to these little changes, but technology can. So if it took a picture every single day for 30 days, and now it tells you, that's getting bigger. It was at, 1 centimeter or 1 millimeter, and now it's 3 millimeters, it's going in the wrong direction. So that is something that you want to know. With that said, we talk about the toilet. The toilet, the smart toilet of the future, will be analyzing the data coming out of you. I know that sounds interesting, but I had a great conversation. Toy Labs. So this is it's a manufacturer. It's called Truelol, Truelol. So think of it as like a bidet, but it's really to analyze the data coming out of you. You remove your toilet seat. You put this new toilet seat on top. It kind of looks like a bidet. It does get plugged in. And what's happening is it's monitoring the activities that are coming out of you. So it really is fascinating from a technology standpoint. It's looking for anything different. So let's say your urine's supposed to be clear, right? I know for myself, you get up in the morning, you go and take a pee, and it's usually that yellowish color. And that's the first indicator that you're either dehydrated or you're taking too many vitamins. So the first thing you want to do is drink, a gallon of water. Just kidding with a gallon, but you definitely want to drink water. If you see red in that, if there is blood in the urine, that's a problem. And the same thing whether it's stools loose, stools consistent, all these things. I'm talking to the manufacturer of this, his name is Vic, and it's fascinating. They were able to pick up cancer, pancreatic cancer. They were able to pick up urinary tract infection. Again, it's one of those things that, we really don't pay attention about, but over time, things could be indicators. And then that information can be sent right to your doctor, and your doctor can really figure out, oh, something's wrong. I need you to come in. We got to do more tests, all those things. It's really fascinating, and I'm very curious to see where it goes. A lot of nursing care centers, SNFs, assisted living facilities have been using this, and the information coming out of it is fantastic. So I don't know. Would you like your data analyzed that's coming out of you?
Not for my personal use, but I don't know at what age the medical profession starts sending me those nice. I think it's called the Colgard. It's yeah, it's like, oh, good, that's back. I guess I used to do it every couple years. Now I guess I must be old enough for every year. But
It's
you
like
know,
when
you
you turn 50 and you got that AARP card right in the mail. How do they
oh,
know your age? Like to the day.
I know so many people, me included, that got those solicitations before we turned 50, like within 4 to 6 months. It was offensive.
Wow. They're on it, man. Their
Yeah,
marketing team is on
we,
it. I'll
that
tell you.
is true. But you said that it could be screened for cancer, so maybe they wouldn't have to be mailing this sample kit back and forth. Because
Yeah.
I always feel slightly bad for the mail person, even though they're not really dealing with it so much. It's just the
Yeah.
packaging, but still, it's kind of like, And at first, my husband's like, "Ew, I'm not doing this," and he threw it away. And I finally said, "Would you rather do that, or would you rather have a colonoscopy?" Now we're going to take a quick break for an ad. These ads help me continue to bring the show to you for free. When I learned that despite eating as healthy as possible, we can still have undernourished brains, I was frustrated. I also live in a farming community, so I'm aware that our food isn't grown as well as we need. Learning about neuroreserves, Relevate, and how it's formulated to fix this problem convinced me to give them a try. Now I know many of you are skeptical, as was I. However, I know it's working because of one simple change. My sweet tooth is gone. I didn't expect that, and it's not something other users have commented on, but here's some truth. My brain always wanted something sweet. Now, fruit usually did the trick, but not always. One bad night's sleep would fire up my sugar cravings so much they were almost impossible to ignore. You ever have your brain screaming for a donut? Well, for me, those days are gone. It's been about 6 months since I started taking the supplement, and I have no regrets. I believe in my results so much that I'm passing on my 15% discount to you. Try it for 2 or 3 months and see if you have a miraculous sweet tooth cure, or maybe just better focus and clarity. It's definitely worth a try. Now back to our conversation.
Well, I think, especially with something like that, we do make fun about it. We talk about it, analyzing the data coming out of you. But I think, especially after COVID, and I think we're a little more of a health conscious society. I mean, for myself, I wear my Garmin watch. I'm a runner. So, knowing what my resting heart rate is, knowing what I'm running at, what my pace is, I could definitely see something like this be useful to myself. And I think what it is once it's just part of the house, it just becomes part of the everyday thing, just like my watch, just like I use my watch. And, whether it's an Apple Watch, whether it's the Trulu, whatever, it's giving you that information. Because I know for myself, God forbid something was wrong. If you could pick up cancer way before there's an issue, because like your husband, I'm really not a fan of the colonoscopy. It's not number one on my list. I'll be honest
No.
with you. And it's only because of the salty drink that you got to drink for like a day before, not my cup of tea.
Mm-mm.
But I would consider this, and I'm very curious to see how younger generations, if they'll adopt things like this, if they're going to adopt things like, the mirror where it's telling you all your biometrics, the mat that you're standing on, because it's kind of like an Apple Watch where you can stand on it. It could actually take your heart rate. It could take your temperature. It could take your weight, like all of these data points every single day. I think that'd be kind of interesting, but I'm curious to see the adoption on it.
I would assume that as the generations age, so I'm a Gen Xer, as we get into, as my generation is the older generation and you guys are where I'm at, I think there'll be more adoption because one, we have an absolute lacking of medical professionals. And so the more information we can give them when we finally get an appointment, the better it would be for everybody because they're not having to guess. Like, just having a warning with older adults and UTIs. And like, sometimes you have no clue other than maybe your personality kind of takes a change for the worse or, you sleep more, but maybe, you're just bored or, I think there's a lot of benefits to it. And like you said, once it's there, it's not like you're getting a printout from your toilet.
Although that would be really cool. Like if you like Home Depot, right? You scan the stuff and you got to go down, you got to print out. That'd be kind of cool if they could have the toilet and like every day you get up, it has like this little printout you just kind of pick up, kind of like toilet paper and be like, I'm good. Who knows?
I think the younger generation would just prefer it being beamed into their app.
That is true. Well, when we talk about water, another thing that's I think is a good technology is, when you go away on vacation, if you stay in a hotel or you go to Disney, everything is automated, right? You put your hands under the sink and the water comes on. You put your hands under the soap comes down. Those kind of things are really starting to come in our home. Again, there's a bunch of manufacturers that do it, and there's a bunch of ways that they do it. Everything from like a foot pad where you can touch to actual touching the unit itself, waving your hand in front of it. I think that's another thing that's going to become the norm in the kitchens and in the bathrooms. Because again, in the kitchen, if I'm preparing food and I've got, chicken guts on my hand, I want to be able to wash them off real quick. And I don't want to touch anything because of salmonella. And the same thing with our aging loved ones and even really anybody, just to make life a little bit easier. And the price is coming down, which is exciting. So you're going to have to put that in your new kitchen.
Yeah. Yeah, you were talking about the smart microwave and the smart stove and all that stuff. Like, man, I got a really dumb kitchen because I've got everything from 1988, except for the microwave. But it's just a cheap, basic one that the previous homeowner left, and I refused to let my husband buy the $400 Breville microwave because it does almost all the same things our Breville smart air oven does. So,
but
yeah, if and when he finally gets enough banks robbed or sells enough houses. That we could get that done. It'll be surprising to see how much Bluetooth he adds to the kitchen, just because that's his thing. We bought a air filter for upstairs because we have a wood burning stove, which not great environmentally, I know, but it's better than freezing. And we spent an extra $30 for the Bluetooth part, which he loves. I could care less.
Hey, you gotta have it.
Well, it helped the day I was like, that thing doesn't need to run all night, and it has a light just enough to like light up the dark family room. And I'm like, that light is keeping me awake. And he's like, okay,
gotta do something about it.
Yep. We turned on the timer. The thing goes off at 10 o'clock. You hear beep and click, and it goes off.
Oh, that's great. Just enough to wake you up.
No, that's like you're sitting on the couch, like, oh, must be bedtime. The air purifier went off.
Well, you were just talking about stoves. So one of the other exciting things is shutoffs for stoves. So there is a company that I have their brochure here. It's called iGuard. Right? I don't know if you can see that, iGuard. But what they are is they're a stove shutoff. And they came from, interesting enough, colleges and college campuses, as well as other housing. So one of the issues is fires on college campuses. So what this does is it plugs basically between your stove and your outlet. And think of it as if you're standing in front of your stove, it allows you to use the stove. But if you walk away and you're not in front of it, it's going to turn off in 10 minutes. So it really limits the amount of issues that you possibly can have. Now, with that said, if you're the Italian grandmother and you want to cook that sauce all day long, you can, because you can kind of override it and say, okay, allow it to simmer for 2 hours. Again, this is some simple technology that their next generation is coming out in the next couple of months. So I'm very excited about it because it's smaller. It's going to have that Bluetooth conductivity. It's going to have an app, but it gives you the ability to know that everything's okay, especially if you have mom that still wants to cook and everything, but you're really concerned. Maybe she, left the stove on before and she walked out the front door. Maybe she forgot about it. Here's something that might be a little bit of an inconvenience, but it's going to shut that stove off. So this way, she's just got to kind of be in the proximity of the kitchen. But hey, it's going to save lives and it's going to make it a little bit better.
Well, we could have used that because we left the rental that we had before we moved up here.
Right.
My son-in-law had a birthday party for my 30th birthday party for my daughter at our house. So there was people in the house. Nobody noticed that my husband left the gas burner on. I mean, it was on like super low. So the flame was like maybe 1/4 of an inch.
Right.
And I came home and walked past the stove and went, holy bleep, this has been on all freaking weekend. So definitely not cost effective to let your stove run all weekend.
Yeah, but could definitely, thank God nothing happened, but could you imagine if, something like potatoes, right? Potatoes are notorious. All of a sudden they start bubbling up, they start going over, or it could be sauce, or God forbid anything. Yeah. We've got to make this stuff work for us. But since we're in the kitchen and you actually said something about a microwave, that next generation of smart microwaves is actually kind of cool because, before I had to put these on, to read. Now, I don't know about you, but you get the package of the frozen peas or frozen corn, and you look on the back of it. It's like, okay, what do I got to do here? And I swear, it is printed in like 0.1 font. I can't see it with the best cheaters that I have in stock. I cannot see this. Well, the new smart microwave, you can scan the barcode on it. It knows exactly what it is. It knows exactly what it has to do. All of those fancy things. You got to put it in for 3 minutes, turn it around. It's got to be 50% for another 2, high blast for 2.5, like all that stuff. It automatically does it. So now all grandma has to do is scan it, chuck it in the microwave, close the door, press start, and you're done.
Okay,
I don't know
want
about
that.
you, but for me, exactly. That's a godsend just for me.
Yeah, I don't. Our microwave is up a little bit high, and I'm the same way. It's like it's a real basic like Panasonic microwave.
Yeah.
And I've never really figured out the power. I mean, I could do it, but it requires thinking. And when I'm hungry, I don't want to think. I just want to eat.
Exactly. I don't want to think. I just want to eat.
I will make sure that the next microwave, besides it's going to be one of those drawer ones, because I'm only 5'2", and if it's up high, it's kind of a hazard because I can pour hot stuff on myself. I'm going to make sure that it's a smart one. I think we actually talked about that. I'm trying to talk the husband out of a gas stove and into induction.
Induction is cool. I got to tell you. With the new, I see him every year at Design and Construction Week because I do a lot of lectures and presentations in whether it's in Orlando or Vegas. But the induction cooktops I really love because not only is it that technology of the induction, so this way when you take the pot off, it's not hot, right? That's great. But also how they're combining all of these things into it. So the induction is connected to an app. The app is connected to, let's say, recipes, and it'll literally follow all that. Just like that smart microwave, the next generation induction cookers will literally, if you got to put sauce on and do a couple of steps, it'll literally follow all that step. So if it's got to be like on high simmer, low simmer, boil, whatever that is, it'll literally follow that. And you just say, okay, I'm done with this part. And then it brings it down to a low simmer. That is so cool. It really is.
Hey, that would eliminate arguing over what level, when it says medium high or medium low, I put it on like 4 and he's like, no, it's more like 2.5. I was like, there's always this debate and it drives me bananas because we're both good cooks. So it's like, it's subjective, but that would eliminate arguments in an app that might convince him. I don't see any apps for
Ah.
gas stoves.
No, but the induction, and then now they have the everything stove. Like I've seen it last year. They creamed everything in this stove. Granted, it's 10 or 15 grand, but it's got induction, it's got regular gas, it's got sous vide, it's got convection. I mean, you name it, this thing has it. It is beautiful. I just want to play around with it. That's all I want.
Okay,
But
well,
I
that
remember,
that price tag is cheaper than the price tag on the um, Thermador 60-inch range that he's planning on getting for our kitchen.
yeah, nice 60-inch range. It's like the back to the good old days, having multiple 8-inch saucier pans and cooking. Oh, that was so much fun.
Yeah, I had finally talked him out of the fact that we don't need a range that big because it's just the two of us, and right now one dog, and we don't cook for her, although she does get a lot of snacks. But the wall that it's gonna go on is 11 feet, so the 48-inch range would look stupid. It would look small. So
Yeah, you got to go 60. Matter of fact, there's another manufacturer called Cooksey. So Cooksey is like this product, this technology, and it looks at what you're cooking, and it's connected to an app with also connected to like all of your different things and what do I want to say, all of your ingredients and stuff like that. But it watches you and it teaches you the professional way of cooking. And it's so cool because they had this thing, they also had it up on a TV so it could show, it sees what's hot, what's cold. It can tell you if you're burning something. It really is so cool. All of these things that are coming out, it's interesting.
well, I guess maybe I should be thankful the Federal Reserve screwed up our plan for a home equity line of credit after we bought the house to redo the kitchen. Obviously, we got the house at the low interest rate. Now they're not low, so that screwed up that whole plan. And,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
know what you mean.
so maybe the technology will morph enough to where he'll be more accepting.
There's
He's
always good stuff coming out.
maybe I should take him to one of these design shows. That sounds kind of fun.
I'll tell you what, if you're into housing and kitchens and baths, you have to go to Design and Construction Week. This year it is out in Las Vegas again, and it has everything from home builder stuff to design stuff to kitchens to baths, you name it, technology, non-technology. It really has a lot of cool stuff. It really does.
Well,
Now, let me leave
we
you.
could write that off because he's a real estate broker.
There you go. You need to know.
Yeah, I'm game.
So I got two more things for you.
Okie dokie.
So if your loved one has tremors, they have a hard time holding something. A lot of times what we'll see is that person will stop, let's say, eating well. They'll end up just eating like deli meats and stuff like that because they can't keep, peas on the spoon, or you definitely can't drink or eat soup or anything like that. Well, there's a company called Lifeware. It came out with this. It's called a steady it automatically stabilizes the attached utensil. So you put your spoon in, and it's like this gyroscopic thing. And no matter how much your hand moves, you can actually start eating peas and corn and soup again. They have another variation of it. So if you can't hold your hand straight and it's like this, the spoon is actually bent and it does the exact same thing. It is really cool technology. And actually, last year, L'Oreal partnered with this company to adapt that product to give you the ability to put on makeup, lipstick, stuff like this. Because if you have that problem, it's really hard to put on lipstick or any kind of makeup. So having this gyroscopically controlled utensil gives you the ability, and again, it all goes back to what we were saying before, independence and dignity, and everybody just wants to feel as normal as they possibly can. Whether you have tremors, whether you're in a wheelchair or walker, it doesn't matter. That's what this is all about.
Yes, it is past time for a lot of this stuff because you've got younger people in wheelchairs and people with
Yeah.
other issues that might cause tremors and they're not older adults yet. So, I'm sure the marginalized community of people with these issues are probably cheering that this is all finally coming around.
Right, right. Well, I got one last thing for you. And my one last thing, you're going to say, this isn't technology. but I'm going to argue with you because I'm going to say, yes, this is what technology does. So I don't know if you've ever heard of it. This is called Tausi, and I am so sorry because I know I keep on pronouncing it the wrong way, but this is one of my favorites. And the reason why it's one of my favorites is because it is the best pillow you've ever had in your life, okay? It really is. It stabilizes your head. And again, because we talk about technology, and technology comes in a bunch of different forms. We think technology as electronics and all that, but it also comes in goods like this. It's the technology of designing this, of creating it, and solving that problem. And the problem really is the ability of holding your head up, whether it's in a pillow like this, or you can take that main pillow portion out, and it really kind of cradles your head. Now, whether mom or dad is having an issue, it could be in their favorite chair. It could be outside. The ability to give them the outside time by the pool, by the grandkids. Again, this is all about independence and dignity. So even though it doesn't really look like technology, it really is because of all that design and technology that went into this to design the perfect pillow for your loved one. What do you think? Kind of cool?
Yeah. I have a friend who is always on the search for the perfect pillow. He's actually stopping by. They just had their daughter-in-law had a second grandbaby. So they're meeting us at Glacier National Park. We are driving there. So we get to do things like bring the bear spray. Can't take that on the airplane.
Right.
They've got a trailer that they've rented that will be set up in the campground when they get there. And it's got almost everything you need, but like condiments and stuff. Well, you don't want to buy all that stuff. So they're just he's bringing me over an ice chest full of things that they don't need visiting the grandbaby, but they're going to need on the camping trip. And I'm going to tell him about Tausi because he's always looking for a better pillow.
I'm telling you, that's the way to go. And it's good for anybody. It's good for by the pool. It's good for on the plane. It really is. And you don't think of things like this, but when your neck starts hurting or you can't hold up your head as much as you used to, I'm telling you, these are the little things that make me excited.
Well, it just aids
the ability
to
say, Alexa, flush my toilet.
That's exactly
what it is. Gives her the ability not to bend over again, not to try to juggle, not to try to fuss with that toilet, which is a potential fall. Now let's take that one step further.
And the body walking
We've
down
talked about the toilet. They can also
I try to stay physically healthy so that I don't have to worry about those things.
For your tub. Think about the best we can, ability, right? With what we've got. Your grandma does not have to put her hand into the shower.
I'm going to list all those things in the show notes.
Maybe it's too hot. Now she goes back and she gets burned. She's bending over.
Which I don't always do fully.
She could just say, Alexa,
this has been fantastic.
Turn the shower on, make it 85 degrees, and it just happens. And later on, Alexa, turn the shower off. Again, it's the little things that can there's a lot of stuff, and I'll tell you what, every year I go out to the independence and dignity of our aging loved ones. And I think I always come back with best of breed, the new stuff that's out, the things that excite me. And I'd love to come back and talk to you in like January, February about that.
Sounds great. So when is the design show in Vegas?
Yeah, so CES is usually the second week in January, and then Design and Construction Week this year is the beginning of February.
Okay. So
yeah,
I got time to plan for that one.
You got time to plan, and I hope to see you out there because it's so much fun.
And my husband's never been to Vegas.
Really? Well, we got to take him out.
I know he keeps saying, I don't know why I'd want to go. I'm not a gambler. I'm like, dude, there's a lot more in Vegas than that.
Yeah, neither am I, but, it's still fun.
You got to throw the quarter or whatever, $1 in the slot. I haven't been to Vegas since the early aughts, so I'm overdue. But, you throw a quarter in the slot so you can get back on the airplane and go home.
I did my thing. I've donated.
Yeah, exactly. But now I'm like, I think he'd love that. I'm going to totally tell him about that. So maybe we'll have a little February trip. Vegas is not that far. It's like 90 minutes. I don't even think it's 90-minute airplane ride from here.
Easy peasy.
Yeah.
Something you got to do.
And Vegas in the February might be a tad warmer than Northern California.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
It's definitely warmer than Jersey.
That it is. That's why I go every single year.
I don't blame you. Well, this has been great. I hope you guys, if you haven't heard Ryan's previous episode all about Caregiver Smart Solutions, definitely need to tune into that one. And definitely check out all these tools, because aging well is one of the things I'm passionate about, because, as I said, I plan on living to be 103 at least, so that is 46 more years to go. And then some at the time of recording. So thank you so much, Ryan.
You are so welcome.
To the end, and as a bonus, here's what you can expect next Tuesday.
Typically, somebody will call 911 and they may be put on hold. And they'll say, well, I can't be put on hold. Quickly state your emergency. Is it medical? Is it fire? Or is it some sort of other kind of like robbery or break-in? So that they know whether to bring a fire department, fire truck, a paramedic, a medical person or professional, or a police officer who needs to come first. Sometimes they'll bring all three, depending upon the situation, but you don't want to use and waste their resources. But quickly state what your situation is. And if they're going to put you on hold, please, if you can't wait, say, no, I can't wait. I've got like a dire situation. And if you are put on hold, do not hang up. You will get put back to the list, especially if there's a long list of other people that are before you on those calls. And they're going to be more frequently, there'll be calls over the holiday times. They're actually, stats say that more people die between Christmas and New Year's than any other time of the year.
And next Tuesday, please support our sponsors, for they help us bring this show to you for free.